Former President Donald Trump is warning us about spy tactics that have been previously used against him. Now, breaking news, guys. Iran just declared war on Israel. This is bad news. IDF strikes Hezbollah military complex in Lebanon. Iran launched drones toward Israel on Saturday evening in retaliation, according to the Israeli military. The Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, stated that these unmanned aerial vehicles were launched from within Iran. Now, before we really get into today's video, all I ask is that you guys take 1 second, hit the like button for the video. I totally appreciate you guys, and thank you so much for always sharing these videos on Facebook and Twitter. You guys are amazing. Now, former President Donald Trump is now warning us about spy tactics that have been previously used against him. The reauthorization of FISA, or FISA, is now being seen as a very controversial topic. And despite this, the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, he's pushing to keep this law intact. Now, as far as we know, this law could possibly remain in place for at least the next 2 years, given that it has recently passed in the House. However, it created massive waves within both parties. Donald Trump argues that this was used against him, and it could very well be used against any American citizen if those in power feel if it's necessary. Now, many people fear that it would remove our right to privacy and instead create a world where everything we do would ultimately be under surveillance. Christopher Wray argues that there are just way too many threats to our country right now that having an important section of FISA removed or restricted would be just too much of a national risk. One of the biggest concerns here is that this gives them the power to conduct warrantless surveillance.
19 Republicans crossed the aisle to vote with Democrats to kill the procedural vote that would have begun debate as to whether FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, would be reauthorized. That is, of course, the law that allows the government to spy on American citizens without getting a warrant.
This was a direct rebuke of Speaker Mike Johnson, who supports FISA and vowed to bring the amendment to the floor for a vote. Let's listen to what he had to say.
When I was a member of the judiciary, I saw all the abuses of the FBI, the terrible abuses over and over and over, the hundreds of thousands of abuses. And then when I became speaker, I went to the SCIF and got the confidential briefing from sort of the other perspective on that to understand the necessity of Section 702 of FISA and how important it is for national security. And it gave me a different perspective. So I encourage all the members to go to the classified briefing and hear all that and see it so they can evaluate the situation for themselves. And I think some opinions have changed both ways, but that's part of the process. You got to be fully informed.
Now, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wants the speaker ousted, called him out for going against Donald Trump, who has been critical of 702. Here's what she told reporters.
We're going to be working on this. We do not believe in warrantless spying on the American people, especially when this bill carves out the ability for Congress to be notified when a member of Congress is going to be looked at through the FISA court. That's completely unfair. The same thing should apply for the American people. But Mike Johnson doesn't have the trust of the conference, and that's become very clear.
Now, we're not sure what Mike Johnson saw or heard in that sensitive compartmentalized information facility, or SCIF, but it must have been something huge to change his mind. Now, some lawmakers believe that Mike Johnson's being persuaded through half-truths and whole lies. Either that or he's just kind of working hand in hand with the Biden administration at this point. Republican Representative Thomas Massie says that these SCIFs can be likened to a haunted house. This is where he says that Mike Johnson was taken to scare him enough to go with the FISA plan. Now, what is the merit of warrantless surveillance? Well, the FBI argues that getting a warrant takes time. And when it comes to national security, they claim that there's just not much time to waste. The problem is that there are many that are pushing for an exception called exigent circumstances. Essentially, this means that if the FBI is under the impression that a threat is imminent, then they can just ignore the warrant part of the process. We can argue that they can claim on this exception every single time, but that remains to be seen. It also shows the importance of the next 2 years, as it is possible that the FBI will be required to report which incidents that they saw to be worthy of a warrantless surveillance. This also means that either Donald Trump or Joe Biden will be in power once FISA expires. This means that one of them could either add exceptions into it or permanently keep it in place. Donald Trump, though, during his term, reauthorized FISA. However, it might be different within the next 2 years since he's telling Republicans that they need to kill it. But have you wondered if the FBI has in fact thwarted terrorist activities through FISA? I'm pretty sure that they're not going to tell us, as this is classified information, although it would probably help to ease our minds as American people. But the Biden administration has tried to reassure us that it's being used responsibly. It's supposedly an important tool, not just to stop terrorist attacks, but also to deter cybercrime and international drug trade. We can also argue that Section 702 is mostly for monitoring foreign terrorist groups and criminal organizations, although the federal government has yet to slow down the entry of potential terrorists and criminals through our southern borders, like Texas, Arizona, and even Southern California. Many critics argue that we continue to let in complete strangers illegally into our country, but the FBI is much more concerned about how they can spy on the American people, because Section 702 provides law enforcement agencies with the power to surveil Americans who are messaging with people abroad. And here's the kicker here, guys. Documents from the FISA court have shown that the FBI used Section 702 improperly. Between 2020 and 2021, it's been said that this section was used almost 300,000 times, not to spy on foreign threats or anything of the sort. It was used to target January 6 suspects, racial justice protesters, and many other American citizens. Meanwhile, we're getting reports of terrorists entering our country left and right. Get this, a man who's actually on the terrorist watch list was released into the United States. Can you believe this? They weren't outright arrested. They were let go and allowed to enter San Antonio. Texas, guys. Texas. This guy is a member of an Afghan terror group, and he illegally entered our country last year. He was able to apply for a job here and even boarded domestic flights here in the United States. After almost a year, he was finally arrested, although ICE withheld classified information about his ties to terrorism. The judge then ordered his release on a $12,000 bond, which he quickly posted. Keep in mind, Donald Trump was involved in a New York City civil fraud case with no victims associated with it, yet he was hit with almost $500,000 in a bond. But this guy over here was only hit with a $12,000 bond? Does this make any sense to you? So this makes you wonder if there are more of them that have entered our country in this manner, which raises the argument that the FBI is focusing on something that's just completely unnecessary. Now, some say that this is because they feel as if we, Americans, we are the threats. But what do you guys think? Do you think that warrantless surveillance can be justified in our country? And do you still feel safe here in the United States? Now, Israeli officials reported that it could be many hours before the drones reach Israeli airspace. Alerts already started to sound across Israel close to 2 a.m. local time, the IDF said. Alarms went off in southern Israel, by the Dead Sea, in Jerusalem, and the Shamron area. The IDF has heightened its alert status and is actively monitoring the situation with its aerial defense systems, including the IAF fighter jets and Navy vessels prepared in Israeli airspace. The drones are expected to take several hours to reach Israel airspace, with alerts sounding across Israel around 2 a.m. local time. Alarms are particularly noted in southern Israel, the Dead Sea area, Jerusalem, and the Shamron region. Additionally, U.S. forces in the region have intercepted some of these drones, as reported by the U.S. officials. The National Security Council spokesperson Adrian Watson confirmed that this airborne assault by Iran was a response to an Israeli attack on April 1st against an Iranian consulate in Damascus, which resulted in the deaths of several Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps members. In anticipation of the attack, President Joe Biden returned to the White House on Saturday. He's being regularly updated by his national security team and plans to meet with them to discuss the ongoing situation. The U.S. administration has reiterated its strong support for Israel's security and its commitment to stand with Israel against threats from Iran. Now, as for myself, I'm going to continue to keep tabs on this topic. As you guys know, it is bound to have a profound impact on our lives. Now, before I go, I just want to thank y'all for your time. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and sharing these videos. I'll see you on the next one.